Happy Cinco de Mayo. Well, hopefully. A day where we celebrate Latin culture through film. For this year's Cinco de Mayo festivities, Aiden, Grant, and I will be looking at one of the strangest film series in all of cinema. The Fast and the Furious franchise, renamed later Fast and Furious, a film series with some of the most fun action films of all time, as well as some absolute garbage. But some of that's also fun. Anyhow, for this video, Aiden, Grant, and I decided to review every film in the franchise. That means Fast and Furious 1 through X, the numbered entries, as well as Better Luck Tomorrow, and of course Hobbs Shaw. To divide these films up fairly, we opted for a snake draft, and while we considered a number of ways to decide who would pick first, the ultimate determination was that we would race. Anyhow, enjoy some footage of our contest, the Fast and the Furious arcade game for Switch.
Pit maneuver Eugene. Powell. Pit maneuver Powell. Yeah, but you gotta keep in mind, I saw 2012. I know there's a super volcano in there. Roland Emmerich taught me that. Nitrous, hit the nitrous. Dominic Toretto. Sonic Adventure, baby. There's one thing I know for damn sure is that Aiden isn't getting Furious 7. Imagine this, Teddy Roosevelt center, and then you're just blasted through. Does he actually live in a Christian monastery? Or
no, you made that up.
No, you were like, you can't have sex at her house. It's a Christian monastery. Seriously? What?
Well, this is coming out Cinco de Mayo, so by then it's fine. Right now it's a secret, but as of Cinco de Mayo, it won't be a secret.
I don't think we're gonna have a shotgun wedding.
Alright,
Anyway.
so we're at 8 Coronas.
We played the video game in order to determine the order of the snake draft.
Yeah.
Grant has won, I've gotten second place, and Aiden got third, which
I got fucked because I had to be first.
Okay,
the
if you're
beta
gonna
tester.
whine about it the whole fucking marathon, maybe
Here's some Corona.
Alright, Grant will be the first to pick. So Grant,
Yes.
what do you want?
I think the obvious choice is Fast 7, so I'll pick Fast 7.
It's actually Furious 7, but...
Okay, fine.
Fake fan.
I'm gonna
Fine.
take Fast X because it's funny.
That's fair. I'd say that's a good.
It's a
solid.
terrible fucking movie, but I'll take it.
I'll take 3 Tokyo Drift, and let's grab. I think 5 is a safe pick.
I'm gonna pick Fast and Furious, the original.
Oh, that was gonna be mine. But are you?
I put it in the wrong spot.
Just put a 1 there. Just put a 1 there.
I think.
Fast and Furious 1.
What's 9? Is that the space one?
That's the one where
That's the
Ludacris
space
goes
one.
to space, yeah.
I would like the space one, but 2 is also pretty good. Oh, I get to pick again.
You get another pick, yeah.
Then I'll take the space one after that because I've never seen it and I was always curious.
9.
Yeah.
I'll take I'll take Fast 6.
Which one's that one?
I don't remember Fast 6 at all. Besides Michelle Rodriguez comes back to life.
I
Y'all
remember
don't-
it's not the worst.
Let's take. I think 4 is the obvious pick.
Which one's 4?
It's the one after Tokyo Drift. I think I'm gonna take the Edge pick. I think I'm gonna take the Han Lore movie.
Better Luck Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, you're already doing Tokyo Drift. It's a good segue.
Hobbs and Shaw in 8, I think, is my choice.
Lose, really.
It really is lose.
I haven't seen Hobbs and Shaw, so I'll take the risk. I'm gonna take Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs
that
and
leaves
Shaw
Grant
is
with
the only one
8.
I haven't seen.
So that leaves Grant with Furious 7, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast 9.
Grant's doing
Fate of
7,
the
8, and 9 in a row. And Too Fast and Too Furious. Grant's just taken over for a while.
just
Connor
keep
has
winning.
Connor has 1 and 10. The
6.
first and the last, 6, and then Hobbs and Shaw. And I have Tokyo Drift 5, 4, and Better Luck Tomorrow.
Alright, well I guess I'm starting. The Fast and the Furious, not to be confused with Fast and Furious, is the first film in this franchise. Before the spy annex and even the over-the-top gunfights was a crime film about streetcar racing. In the year 2000, Paul Walker worked with Rob Cohen on The Skulls and proved to be a pretty viable leading man. Cohen would soon be hired by Universal to direct an action film, and he brought Paul Walker on with him. Paul Walker pitched a racing crime film after seeing an article on underground street races, suggesting he could be an undercover cop positioned within that culture. Gary Scott Thompson wrote the first draft, though David Ayer was later brought on and thought that Gary's New York-based story was a little too white-leaning, moving it across the country and adding some diversity. hence the Cinco de Mayo theme. Despite conceptualizing the film, Walker was briefly considered against other actors to lead the film, including Eminem, Christian Bale, and Mark Wahlberg. However, they soon figured Walker was the man to bring the lead, Brian O'Connor, to life. The original title of the film was Racer X, but it didn't slide off the tongue so well, though after coming across the 1954 film, The Fast and the Furious, a Roger Corman production, the producers really wanted to use that title. Roger Corman was a traditional shyster and liked making a deal. He owns the name still despite the passing of nearly 50 years. However, he was willing to make a trade. If they gave him some sick car footage to pad his future films, he would allow them to use the title. Corman is the king of padding, though he would allow them to use the title in perpetuity. The film sees some Panasonic Tube TV VHS combos being stolen en masse from semi-trucks by illegal streetcars. Brian O'Connor is sent undercover to try to crack what was happening with the organized street racing scene. Pretty quickly, he investigates the Toretto Cafe, where he meets Dom Toretto and his crew, as well as Mia, his sister. At the time, his crew comprises of side characters, Letty, his girlfriend, Vince, Leon, and Jesse. They don't like Brian, so they try fighting him. They also tell him to eat somewhere other than the Toretto Caf.
Try Fat Burger from now on. You can get yourself a double cheese with fries for $2.95. Big ass.
I like the tuna here.
Oh, that was a cheap burger. Dom tries getting Brian fired from his job, which leads Brian to try to race Dom to prove himself, since Dom appears to be the big dog in the streets. Dom and Brian race. Brian shoots his nitro too early and loses. The race gets busted by cops. Dom's crew runs, but Brian saves Dom from being picked up by the cops, but winds up bumping into rival Johnny Tran and his gang. Dom and Brian from here grow close and become friends. Meanwhile, Brian starts falling for Mia, but the cops want him to close up the case. The hard thing is, Brian's starting to like the life these people lead. Brian thinks he cracked the case, blaming Tran after finding some of his Panasonic VCR TV combos, but the cops can't prove anything beyond the fact that Tran bought those TVs legally. Anyhow, Race Wars is coming up, and I know how it sounds, but no. Not like that kind of race war. It's a supercar race and meet, and Brian and Dom plan to race. Tran and his gang are there too, though. Crew member Jesse gets too big for his bridges and challenges Tran to a race, getting his ass beat in his dad's car, but racing for pink slips means he's going to lose the car, so he runs. However, that night, Dom and the rest of the crew are planning to steal some more Panasonic TV VHS hybrid players. Brian warning Mia they need to stop Dom since he's in danger. Brian not wanting to arrest his friend, and also because Tran has gone rogue and is looking for Dom and his crew after being cheated at the race war. During the heist, everything goes wrong, and as the semi-truck driver starts fighting for his life to save the cargo, Vince almost gets killed in the process. Brian reveals himself, calling for help on the police line since it's the only way to save Vince, who almost bled out. Dom and the gang flee the scene, but later Brian has to arrest Dom when Jesse shows up, though right behind Jesse is Tran, who wants his retribution, still pissed at Jesse for getting screwed, and Jesse gets shot to Swiss cheese. Brian and Dom chase Tran for vengeance, and Brian kills Tran. Brian and Dom race one more time, Dom getting in an accident and having his car destroyed. Brian ends up handing over the keys to his car and letting Dom escape to Mexico, and that concludes the first Fast and Furious film. Brian is our lead. He's an undercover cop who starts falling in love for Mia and becoming friends with Dom and falling in love with the hooligan race life, and eventually letting Dom go despite what that will do to his reputation as a police officer. Dom is the head of the street racing crew who can't really find true loyalty, starting to really like Brian since he's super loyal to Dom and puts his ass on the line for him a few times. Thus, he is pretty hurt when Brian betrays him and turns out to be an undercover police officer. Though, by the end, when Brian lets him escape, he gains some respect for him. Letty and Mia are the love interests. Letty for Dom and Mia for Brian. You know, be pretty weird if Dom was going after Letty. Vince is a dick who almost gets killed during a heist and gets his leg all chopped up. He's kind of all bark, no bite kind of guy. Jesse is the gang's resident child mascot turned dead body after Tran gets to him. And Tran is the rival generic gangbanger. Tonally, this film is fun, over the top, slightly nonsensical, though it's a decent racing movie. Everything is an excuse for cheesy lines about loyalty, and so we can get over-the-top streetcar races. One thing I really appreciate about this film is it's less of an action film and more of a drama with some action sprinkled in. The tone of this franchise doesn't really find a consistent feel and tone till Fast and Furious 4. Until then, they kind of just cycle through different racing scenarios. Musically, the soundtrack has rapper Ja Rule, who has a bit part in this film. You know, Ja Rule, that guy that 50 Cent has been mad at for a quarter century, and as a result did a few songs for the soundtrack, which is the first Latin and rap infusion album of the series. The music always being a big portion of the franchise. I mean, look at Wiz Khalifa's See You Again from Furious 7, for example. That was one of the biggest songs of the year when it dropped, and it still plays consistently, despite the story behind that song being 12 years old now. Joining Ja Rule includes an all-star cast of rappers and singers from the day, including Faith Evans, Ashanti, Scarface, Funkmaster Flex, Fat Joe, DMX, Method Man, Redman, Nate Dogg, Limp Bizkit, and convicted sex pervert R. Kelly. The film fails to always stay in focus and is edited in a very fuck-ass manner. I don't really know any other way to put it. It's very weird looking. And to add to that, the blasting soundtrack, which when not rap is like Tony Hawk Pro Skater background music and mixed way too loud next to the fairly quiet dialogue moments. The racing shots are very of the era, I guess. The CGI nitro cam is really something, and the film really jumps around, sort of being shot like a music video. I would generously call the cinematography in this film mixed, but realistically it's bad. I will say scenes like the semi-truck robbery have some really good stunts, people driving under semi-trucks and jumping car to car. It's really fun and informs the action for the rest of the series, even when action became a bigger element of it. It is fairly quaint by modern standards, honestly, for a Fast and Furious film on that note. I mean, the film's action involves Dom stealing Panasonic VHS TV combos, and more modern films see rapper Ludacris shot into space.
If we crash into that satellite, we'll probably die. And even if we don't, the fuel that it would take to smash it, we'd be stuck out here forever.
I lose, winner takes my car clean and clear. But if I win, I take the cash and I take the respect.
This film seems to come from the school of Bad Boys a little bit, but ironically, the sequels would kind of move much closer to Bad Boys. Also, ironically, the more recent Bad Boys sequels seem to borrow so many elements from Fast and Furious, you can almost combine the two franchises by now. It's all kind of full circle, I guess, and this was a very early 2000s style of filmmaking. This film has some flagrant product placement.
You can have any brew you want, as long as it's a Corona.
Thanks, man.
This line inspired our Corona counter, which we will be running in this video. If that wasn't enough, though, there's very briefly a Pizza Hut delivery driver in this film, and this inspired us to order Pizza Hut, though the bastards didn't put pepperoni on our New York-style pepperoni special pizza. I don't know how the pizza joint forgot fucking pepperonis, but whatever. We got indoctrinated by a quarter-century-old Pizza Hut ad, so guess we're the fools. This film kind of just abruptly ends, and so will this portion of the video.
The Long Gay Road DLC. Okay, a lot of nothing happens for 6 minutes. There, I just saved you 6 minutes. Why does the map look like that? It looks stupid. This whole thing looks like a Disney Channel original movie, you know? Like it were made on the tiniest of budgets with absolutely no reason to justify its own existence. Why even bother showing us how Brian got to Florida? I don't fucking care. Like literally, who cares? It's just a throwaway line. That's all we need. He's like, yeah, things got real close there making the trip down, but I still got police after me, but now I'm in Florida. Like, this looks like a cell phone commercial. Too Fast, Too Furious. Too Fast, Too Furious really is the 12 Years a Slave of the franchise Paul Walker is forced into a life he didn't want because he's just too good at it. No, but actually, Too Fast, Too Furious feels like a straight-to-DVD sequel of a movie that already came out on DVD. I mean, that's the vibes I get when watching it. Like, the first movie had at least a little bit of budget, sure, but it also felt ludicrously cheap at points. Oh, speaking of ludicrous...
Thanks for the invite.
No problem at all, man. Just remember me when you wax, alright?
Wow, I can't believe they got ludicrous 4 months before Chicken and Beer came out. Must have been a really good catch. Wow, really hot off the tail of word of mouth. No, but this movie feels like it were made under false pretense, right? Like some exec went up to pitch it and was given the green light before he even got any words out. Double the budget and waste it all on a helicopter. Maybe if he got a word in edgewise, he could have, tipped off the execs that the movie was going to be shit. The first movie is great because it was about fast cars going fast, and interpersonal relationships more or less stayed in the background. One dude wants to hijack a bunch of VCR CRT TVs, and a lawman is trying to infiltrate his crew and stop him, but by the end learns that his motives are more or less for pure reasons, and there's reasons for what he's doing. Contrast that to FNF 2, and Paul Walker's character doesn't need to sympathize with the villain by the end because he's just busting some big drug lord who's smuggling really cool cars or something. I wasn't really paying attention. Okay, team, we couldn't get Vin back for the sequel, but we could get Paul Walker hot off the heels of Joyride. What's Joyride?
Denver, see you tomorrow.
Breaker one, man. This is like a prehistoric internet or something.
Don't worry about it. Let's take the lead of the first and, just kind of put him in Florida. Was this movie written entirely on a napkin? Like, this really feels like a B team movie when all the weaker aspects kind of combine together to form some weird Voltron of bad directing, bad acting, and bad writing. Crazy to think that the budget was actually double FNF 1's. And I'm surprised anyone stayed with the series long enough for them to jump the shark and go to Tokyo. But I mean, I'm grateful, that song from Tokyo Drift fucking slaps, and I still can't believe Pharrell made it, of all people. The more I try to write about my feelings of FNF 2, the more I realize how little I have to say. The first movie was charming in a way because its seemingly low budget and simple writing was endearing. Suddenly, they're trying to up the stakes in a way that just kind of seems incongruous. The first movie is about low-level theft, and the second movie is about some big weird drug lord in Florida trafficking his drugs. There really should have been an in-between movie where Paul Walker busts someone who's boosting cars, or maybe the big villain has some plan to hijack a warehouse full of sports cars. Skipping immediately to Schedule 1 drugs is crazy to me. But yeah, I guess, up the stakes for the sequel. Paul is a cop in these movies, and even if he's on the lam, he's got experience with guns and blah, blah, blah. God, Paul Walker is a dreamboat. I can just see him on the cover of Teen Magazine. It makes me just really fucking hard. This movie spends about an hour and a half spinning its wheels, stuck, while all the possible prospects of profit are blown out the nearest window by a passing breeze. Ugh, Miami. Ugh. The movie starts pretty simply with a race that's only tangentially related to the plot. It really establishes a long-running pattern of all of the Fast and Furious movies, starting with some mostly unrelated street race that can really flex the budget of the film. The people who like fast cars get to see a non-stop action set piece centered around those fast cars, while the characters have a little bit of fun before the plot, really starts. Usually it's a good idea to fill your script with scenes that propel the plot, but having breaks like this will always be welcome in my eyes. That calm before the storm, bit of world building that justifies itself with, whoa, Paul just took a big fucking jump off a drawbridge. I think the race at the beginning is fun. We get a cool bridge jump, stupid CGI dives into the car, the dumb nitrous thing. It's great, and I, for one, really enjoy it. I joked about the plot being insubstantial, but you can really tell F&F is still trying to be a mostly serious movie. We still have a few more movies before we go full retard, but it's almost endearing to think that these people, you know, the director, the writers, PAs, grips, gaffers, significant others that pestered their husbands for details about the movie they were working on that day. See, all these people had no clue that Dom was gonna go ramping off a destroyed parking garage to plant a bag of grenades for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to shoot with his revolver to explode an African warlord's helicopter after Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson jumped off a bridge in a stolen ambulance to destroy a drone that was chasing his friends, and then using the destroyed drone's minigun to shoot a helicopter after Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson flexed so fucking hard his cast broke off. What did you do for work today, honey? I don't want to fucking talk about it. Paul Walker gets arrested after doing a fucking sick bridge jump stunt, and then his former handlers at the FBI bust him out, you know, on one condition, that he work undercover and blow the cover off some blah 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 blah. Do you actually care? Do you actually care? You came here for the racing, right? The cool action set pieces that justify the film's existence. Well, you'd be surprised, but for a straight-to-DVD looking movie like this, there's an okay amount of racing in it. Paul Walker runs from the cops, gets chased by a helicopter that does some fucking go-go gadget EMP hook shot, does this fucking car scramble at the end, is great. But the movie itself is a slog to get through while waiting for these action scenes. Part of this is my personal experience with the franchise, having come in so late. You know, my first film was Fast and the Furious 6, watching Gal Gadot kill herself by jumping backwards off a car to save this sexy Asian man who I've been wondering where he is. But starting at 6 kind of puts your expectations in a place that Too Fast can't really stack up to. They had 6 movies of silliness creep to build more and more ridiculous scenarios. So going back to such a simple movie like this is a bit torturous for me personally. It's not the movie's fault at all, no. I mean, this was 2003. They didn't have much else to go on in terms of utter schlock if they wanted to lean into it. Sure, Daredevil was kinda silly, but it took itself seriously, and the faint whispers of Furious 7's ridiculousness was still but a glint in James Wan's eyes. I was bored, and it was my fault. That's what I'm saying. Because Too Fast is trying really hard to look like it has budget, but somehow it just feels cheap.
I want to hear about this, homie.
So forget about it, cuz.
Paul, you can't say that. I don't care if you have one black friend, Paul. You can't just go around with your pants sagging, talking about collard greens and where the white women at. It's offensive. You can't just say, forget about it. That's Paul. Paul recruits an old pal, Tyrese, who seems just utterly enthused to be in this movie. Show clip confirming or denying this. Tyrese joins Paul in trying to bust that racing drug lord thing with the help of his FBI handlers, and they both try to prove they're really good at whatever the fuck it is that the drug lord wanted. Something, I'll give you money if you're good at transporting drugs. Me, Aiden, and Connor watched the extended versions of these films because
I got an addiction. I'm addicted to Granny Punani.
And this has a weird sort of side effect, Mandela effect thing going on where it's like, was this in the original or no? Like, were these horrible CGI cars in the drag race in the original film, or was this like a deleted scene that they felt was too unfinished to show off in the final, but then like someone ran in and said, we gotta pad the time for an extended edition, and then they just feel like, fuck it, fuck them, put it in. You all know the Fast and Furious franchise by now, right? Yeah? It was some weirdly huge hit despite someone saying, nice friend, in the first 10 minutes. Shit was crazy, dog. People just like fast cars and racing, and Fast and Furious delivered on both. You got to see these sick looking vehicles doing sick things, and despite how crazy the franchise got later in the series, these first few movies were still entertaining in their own right. The first movie was great, a low budget film for Hollywood standards, but it did well with what it had. Some great moments came from the first movie, and honestly, it's still enjoyable in retrospect. What was I talking about? 2 2-speed really should be bigger and better, but even with slightly improved CGI, I can't help but scoff at it. My eyes have been ruined by the future, and the bridge jump stunt that clearly took a lot of effort to pull off while exciting back in 2003 wasn't exciting in 2026. That's not a fault of the film, as I've been saying, but in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking of crazy shit to come. But again, this isn't a point of critique. I know that I'm fully corrupted by brain rot at this point. The movie's audio mixing improved for what it's worth, but for some reason the version we watched is still pretty bad altogether. Quiet parts are way too quiet, loud parts are way too loud. It didn't really vibe with the three of us who were watching it at home and had to keep the remote nearby at all times because we needed it to adjust on the fly. Audio engineering is tough. It's something I've been looking into and working with a lot in my job, as well as the music I'm trying to put together on the side. So I understand that 20-something years ago, the editor was probably just adhering to the standards of the time, and most movies, from what I've seen in this era, had the same problem. You know, loud parts too loud, quiet parts too quiet. But this is a re-released extended version Connor bought online, so why the hell is it still so bad? Surely someone could have just put like a compressor on the master audio and called it a day, you know?
I said forget about it, cuz.
Paul, stop saying that. Paul, stop saying that. Oh fuck, I forgot about this. Oh, holy shit, that is so fucking cool. How the fuck did they do that? 10 out of 10 movie. Perfect movie to get a blowjob to. Paul Walker and Tyrese Gibson save the day and bust the drug lord and earn their pardons and blah, blah, blah. I cannot stress how hard it is to come back to the series when it is this fresh and not balls to wall, mentally lobotomized. I joked earlier that there should have been an in-between movie, but honestly, I'm happy each movie takes huge jumps in stakes that seemingly never end. They know exactly how stupid things are by 7, but we'll get to that. You can kind of see notions of Fast and Furious's future past start to whisper in my ear, telling me I'm bored watching Paul Walker do his thing while Ludacris tries his best to act. But honestly, the movie itself, taken as an island of the franchise, solo on its own merit, it's totally fine. A mostly entertaining 108 minutes that does its best to straight-face its way through this hunky blonde saying,
I said forget about it, cuz.
Okay, Paul, I'm starting to get concerned here. You used to be this upstanding policeman, and now you're kind of falling in with the wrong crowd, you know?
Nah, man.
I thought the highway chase with the helicopter and stupid EMP hookshot was stupid and fun. I mean, it's kind of how one needs to measure their entertainment of these films, you know? Like, you need to realize at some point that they are kind of silly when you think about it. You have to defeat the big bad villain by driving your stupid car real fast, yeah? Hey, do you think the government used this stupid EMP hookshot on Gaddafi at some point? Maybe we chased him down an Arabian highway and shot his fucking 1988 Range Rover with fucking EMP hookshot.
You're probably wondering how I got into this situation. Insert record scratch here. But seriously, what is Better Luck Tomorrow and why am I talking about it? Better Luck Tomorrow is a coming-of-age drama film about a group of Asian American high schoolers who fall into petty suburban crime in an effort to break the monotony of their daily lives and make some money. And it was directed by Justin Lin, arguably the most influential man to work on the Fast and Furious franchise, between directing 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, some amount of 10, and then some stuff happened, and also apparently he's doing 11 if that ever comes out. That itself doesn't necessarily make it a Fast and the Furious movie, but Han being in it sure does. Lin himself even confirmed this is the same Han. The funniest part is, despite this being Han's origin story before becoming a major part of Fast and Furious, he's probably the least important major character, barely above Professor Beaver Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver. Also, Jason Tobin, who plays Virgil Who in this movie, also plays Earl in Fast and Furious, and the wiki calls him Earl Who, which implies that he's Virgil's cousin. I don't know, I'm not sure what to make of that, but do with that what you will. As for the movie itself, Better Luck Tomorrow is on the better end of decent, if a touch mundane. It starts strong with Ben and Virgil finding a corpse under their backyard, but they knew it was there. They put it there, so the opening narration doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's some fun shenanigans before we get to the murder, Best Buy return scams, cocaine parties, purchasing prostitutes, and it intermingles with Ben's relationship plotline with Stephanie, whose douchey boyfriend is John Cho from that dog shit AI House movie, and Harold and Kumar. Well, Ben and notably Han eventually fall out of love with petty crime and go back to being upstanding citizens, or as upstanding as they can be. All four of the main characters get pulled into a dumbass scheme by John Cho, who ends up getting himself killed, leading to Ben finally accepting fate as it comes, I suppose leaning into his worst urges in some ways, and learning to let go of his worries. It's not too out there for the genre, but it is executed fairly well. The grainy, budgety look, ridiculous 90s editing, every character gets one of these flashy camera introductions with a voiceover narration that's just so 2002. And of course, as an MTV movie, a lot of licensed 2000s schlock music appears. It's a lot of fun on that end, and the cast is pretty good despite being a touch rough around the edges. This was Justin Lin's first feature project, and these are kids he's working with. It's not essential viewing or anything, more curiosity for its ties to a series where Luda and Tyree and Han himself take a rocket car to space. It's decent. As far as the Han situation goes, there's very little resemblance. I don't know why Justin Lin made this canon. Like in Tokyo Drift, Han is also a petty criminal, but in Better Luck Tomorrow he seemed to be moving away from that life, and the ending sorta implies he may snitch on everyone else for the murder that happened. And next time we see him canonically is in Fast and Furious 4, which takes place before 3, as do 5 and 6, and why the fuck he's in the Dominican Republic, how he met Dominic Toretto, when he learned to drive cars to steal oil from oil tankers, and any other pertinent questions about how he went from a California suburb to the events of Fast 4 to 6, then moved to Japan to pretend to be a high schooler, then fake died, joined a secret organization of car driving superheroes, then went to space with Luda and Tyree is never explained. And honestly, trying to connect these two franchises is so strange that it's a bit hard to parse. It earnestly makes me question how and why he decided this movie counted outside of really liking the character of Han. The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift has several bizarre distinctions from the other movies in this franchise. It was the first and only spin-off the series had for a decade. Its breakout character Han, who himself had already broken out from Better Luck Tomorrow, was so popular that the next 3 movies would take place before this one, to increasingly contrived effects so that he could continue appearing in the movies, and its director Justin Lin would become the de facto voice of the franchise he had inherited, directing 5 more movies, including the 2 newest, with a slight asterisk, and slowly nudging the series from its humble street racing thriller origins into whatever the fuck you would call them now. Tokyo Drift still mostly fits into that old style, but outside of a very strange cameo at the end, functionally ignores the existence of the first 2 movies. Initial pitches had Dom on the run hanging out in Tokyo, but he was doing the whole Riddick thing at the time, and Paul Walker just wasn't interested, which led to Universal going with a high school-centric story, presumably to appeal to a slightly younger crowd, and picking up Justin Lin to do it after being impressed with his work on Better Luck Tomorrow. Apparently Universal also couldn't get the proper permits to shoot in Shibuya, so a lot of this movie was shot guerrilla style, like Toxic Avenger 4, and Universal even hired a fake director to get arrested in the events that the cops showed up before they could get the scene. They were very dedicated to the bits. For what it's worth, it somewhat paid off. Tokyo Drift is far from a great movie, but it is fun, and unlike the first 2, all of its shots are in focus. Bad CGI racing scenes are minimal, not entirely gone though. There's a pinch of an interesting style, helped by Shibuya just being one of the most stylish places on Earth, and by some really good selections on the music end that give the movie a ton of energy. Actually, the sound mixing is the worst yet, but I can't tell if that's some weird voodoo problem or what, honestly. A lot of voodoo movies seem to have weird audio mixing issues that don't exist on other versions, so that might just be a voodoo thing. Tokyo Drift follows Sean Boswell, a dumbass teenager played by a 25-year-old with the hairline of a 40-year-old divorcee, who finds himself in hot water after street racing through a construction site and getting sent to Japan to live with his military divorcee dad. Within a day of deciding he hates Japan, he falls in with the other military kids, former semi-popular child rapper Bow Wow, and Australian Neela, who's dating some Yakuza guy, and the trio bond over the drifting heavy street racing of Tokyo. Well, more so the love interest duo. Bow Wow isn't actually that important after like the first 10 minutes. More crucially, the drifting scene has ties to the Yakuza. Takashi acts as the villain, hating Sean for stealing his girl, and works under his uncle, played by the great Sonny Chiba, while Sean befriends Takashi's partner Han, who teaches him how to drift and helps him make money in the underworld, before Han skimming off the top causes Takashi to start trying to kill them. This movie is essentially a remake of Rocky IV. A kid with natural talent loses to the big guy doing shady shit, gets mentored on the relevant sport in the mountains, his mentor is killed by the villain. Pretty indirectly, since he just gets T-boned in a random collision and explodes, and the retcon situation later is, Grant will tell you all about that. And then our hero comes back in the ultimate final race to avenge his mentor, save the girl in a contrived setup where Takashi kidnaps Neela, then Sean pays off Han's debts to Sonny Chiba, and Sonny Chiba thinks the whole race thing sounds fun, so he releases the girl. The ending probably could have used a few extra passes, but it is a lot of fun. Tokyo Drift is a lot of style and not much substance. I have fun with it, as silly as it is. Even from the start, watching Sean smash up his car in the first race while Takashi effortlessly drifts around the parking lot is cool. Like, simple as. The big chase that allegedly kills Han has this ridiculous moment at Shibuya Crossing where the crowd disperses into perfect drift lines, and the final race goes full action movie, but has so many great moments as Takashi tries to force Sean off the cliff, coupled with these genuinely pretty cool zoom out shots and whatever this phone camera shot is. The action is just so much fun. The problem is everything else is just a little boring. There's a lot of car culture stuff that'll appeal to car people, but that doesn't do anything for me. There's a lot of, the OC type high school drama with ridiculously heightened stakes, and the world's simplest Yakuza plot about some low-level kid getting shit from his uncle, not helped at all by the actors being not great. Sean especially has a very grating fake, southern accent, despite being from Arizona as far as the movie's concerned, and it makes every scene he's in very silly. Bow Wow is kinda just bad comic relief, although the Incredible Hulkmobile is pretty funny. And Neela especially just has literally nothing going on. It's not that the movie never has a hint of life. I like the training scenes with Han, who is far and away the strongest of the cast, and the old fishermen who have fun watching Sean improve. But the movie is pretty tedious outside of the ambient benefit of being set in the very, very cool looking Shibuya. I think Tokyo Drift is fairly watchable. It's bad, but it's not badly constructed bad. When it has its moments, they're honestly a ton of fun, and strong visual elements make it a nice background movie for doing other things too. I'll be doing the next few movies. In fact, I somehow just got a whole block, so let's go back in time a little to Fast and Furious. Well, we have one little pit stop first. Directed by Vin Diesel, Los Bandoleros is a 20-minute prologue to the fourth Fast and Furious that released as an extra on the DVD of the movie. Earnestly, I'm not really sure what they're going for. I think mostly just adding some weight to Letty's lack of appearance in the movie, because outside of some vague speeches early on about how Bandoleros need to be around to keep the world united or some shit, this is just Letty finding Dom banging out Dominican hookers, and then they make out on the beach. He gets a foot job in the car. They have very dangerous sex while driving a car. They have sex in a boat 3 feet offshore. If this was intended to be part of the movie, then no fucking wonder it was cut. It's boring as hell. I think that about covers Los Bandoleros outside of the Tarantino-esque amount of Michelle Rodriguez's feet. Other than that, there's nothing even remotely funny or interesting to say about this one. Oh god, there's more feet. It's becoming a trend. Fast and Furious is weird. From the name to the movie itself, the movie is a soft reboot that essentially rewinds the clock to the first movie and starts kinda fresh. Vin Diesel was absent in Too Fast and appeared in Tokyo Drift for 20 seconds at the end, but has returned to the spotlight, alongside his sister and his girlfriend, and Paul Walker passed on Tokyo Drift but is back here, and has moved from former LA cop turned fugitive to FBI agent, and also Han is here. Wait, why is Han here? As I said in the previous part, to facilitate the continued use of Han, Fast and Furious 6 exists in the 5-year gap between the original and Tokyo Drift, which is a real oddity. First he managed to break out of a teenage coming-of-age drama to a spin-off Fast and the Furious, then broke out post his own death to the main series. With all the pieces back in their original places, although this time in the Dominican Republic, the series lightly acknowledges the events of the first 2 movies, but once again, Paul's going undercover as a car guy to race, and Vin Diesel's a fugitive, thief, car hijacker guy. Somewhat friends, but on opposite sides of the law. The movie is bigger and stupider than ever, full of dumb action, explosions, and ridiculous scenarios. I mean, all this is a positive, by the way. The initial heist, Dom, Letty, Han, and 2 Dominican guys, who are pretty thoroughly dropped from the cast after this movie, are robbing a moving oil tanker by breaking off its train of oil tanks and pulling them away as it goes down a hill, resulting in them getting shot at by the driver, near misses jumping tanker to car, and driving under the bouncing and exploding final oil tank to avoid it as they're backed up against a cliff. It's the finale of the first movie times 100, and it takes place 0 minutes into the movie. It is such an awesome escalation of this franchise. A few months after this opener, Letty is murdered under the orders of a Mexican drug lord, Arturo Braga, well in America, which brings our 2 friends and enemies back together. Dom has returned to America for revenge, and Brian is investigating to help out his long-lost bro and his hot sister, while contending with the uptight FBI brass, mostly Shea Wiggum, who always plays assholes like this. This is like the exact same character he played in the Mission Impossible finales. Dom is running around attempting to murder leads to fight his way to the top. Brian is willing to let him go, but not willing to let him kill his leads. So they're initially in a kinda awkward half-friendship state that I find very fun. And it builds to a completely contrived street race Braga uses to find the best of the best drug smugglers. Contrivance of the scenario aside, it blows the past 3 movies away. It's energetic, fast-paced, there's no awful CGI cars. Cars are getting obliterated and people are dying left and right as they smash into other cars on the freeway. Brian leaves the track on accident and has to freestyle a little bit, which is very exciting and fun. Every part of this is just fantastic. Speaking of fun, this movie also branches out just a tiny bit. While it is still very car focused, there's a very nice foot chase right at the start of the movie when Brian gets introduced that shows a little bit of flexibility in this series that would come out more and more as it progressed. There's some stuff going on in the middle, but a lot of it is set up for the smuggling run, which is a hell of an explosive finale. Running through an abandoned mine that has inexplicable time doors that open and close, nabbing the drug lord after stealing his cocaine, and driving back out the same way as the narcos try to smash Brian and Dom into walls in the mine, just to get destroyed themselves. And in the end, Dom even saves Brian and gets his revenge by driving into Braga's hitman, although he is landed in jail with the final scene teasing Brian breaking him back out. It's all fun, if just a tiny bit flat. Part of that is that filming cars is kinda hard. The street race has lots of real car stunts that are very cool, and there's a good few real car stunts in the oil heist scene, although obviously that one has some CGI just by the nature of how over the top it is, and those 2 are both fantastic. By comparison, a huge part of the finale is CGI. Almost everything in the tunnel, which is like the main final set piece, and the 2009 CGI leaves the whole thing feeling a little underwhelming and weightless, although I think there's still some great stuff mixed in. The whole thing kinda has this cartoonish energy where Brian and Dom are playing cheap tricks and smashing through walls to kill villains, but the energy has kind of faded by that point. It's not like it's some masterpiece, but Dom and Brian playing a kind of strange buddy cop thing is fun. They're great together, as is the limited secondary cast, and it's feeling out a better future for the series than being a kind of okay set of racing movies in jumping into the exciting genre of really stupid action movies. Lynn is also really solid for what it's worth. This movie has that yellow piss filter that was absolutely the style of the time, but I think it does a generally good job of having exciting and fast action on top of looking pleasant with the lighting and composition. It's also probably the first movie that doesn't have any out of focus shots, which is a very low bar to jump over, but one that it clears effortlessly. It's good stuff, but not great stuff yet. The perfect segue for my final movie, the video. Fast 5 is a fascinating transitional piece. Outside of one off-screen street race to win a pink slip, the car culture and racing elements of the series have been excised from this movie almost entirely, instead becoming a Michael Bay-esque farce action movie centered on cars lightly, and for a first foray into that territory, it's a damn good start. Once again on the run after breaking Dom out, Dom, Brian, and Dom's sister are hiding out in Brazil alongside Vince, the homophobic slur guy from the original, and steal some cars off a train, leading to a fantastic opening action scene, and winning the ire of the drug lord Herman Reyes, who kills several DEA agents and frames the group for it, leading the US government to send Special Agent Hobbs, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, to hunt them down, while they plan a heist to get back at Reyes. This heist, of course, involves reuniting with Han, Gal Gadot, who was in the last movie and was so unimportant I didn't even mention her, Tyree, Ludacris, and those Dominican guys, tearing Reyes' private vault out of a wall at the Rio de Janeiro police station, and dragging it through town while swinging it around like a flail to kill dozens and dozens of corrupt police officers and potentially hundreds of civilians. I'm going to post my unofficial estimate on screen now after a hefty analysis of the entire scene of how many civilians and police officers were killed in this chase. Their kill count probably rivals Superman and Man of Steel. To back it up, Fast 5 is fun, but does drag a tiny bit. I think the problem is a lack of a mid-movie action scene. There are a couple, particularly with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who's like a military guy and gets a couple shootouts with the narcos and whatever. And like the whole cast coming together and interacting is very fun. All the disparate characters of the series are smashed together in new and wacky combinations. I love it. Some of it is probably not what I would have done. I don't know why Ludacris became the tech guy after being like the race organizer. Vince does next to nothing. I don't think he even really drives. He kind of just stays behind working on the cars. And some of the roles probably could have been condensed a bit, but I think there's a lot of stuff that works too. Hobb is a great pseudo-villain. As silly and weird as The Rock is as a person, he has the cool benefit of being a big guy Vin Diesel can get into stupid wall-shattering fights with, and I like that he's the grounded mirror to the cast, while his hot subordinate and Don have a kind of forced romance on opposite sides of the law thing going on. Perhaps it's my Han bias, but I like that he's in more than 10 minutes, unlike the last movie, and despite neither Han or Gal Gadot being very good actors, I think their little romance subplot works kind of well enough. Tyree is a great comic relief, being the simplest and most annoying of the group and kind of just going wherever the money goes, which is like endearingly silly. And even the Dominicans get their fun little break-in scene where they go into the police station to blow up the sewage line in order to get access to the cameras, which catches the most corrupt cop in the crossfire. I don't mean that in like a he exploded way, but he gets covered in the poopy. I think one of the larger problems is that the heist planning phase has its moments, actually some really good ones, especially when they're trying to drift around the cameras as practice, but also has lots of lulls, and the whole thing is discarded later on. The street racing for pink slips in an effort to get faster cars to skim past the cameras is entirely dropped and discarded when the group very easily steals 4 police cars instead, after receiving a significant amount of focus throughout the movie. To be fair, it is a very fun set of scenes, which also invalidates the whole poop explosion, and the whole plan is thrown out altogether when Hobbs arrests the group. Within 5 minutes of the arrest, narcos kill The Rock's full squad and there's a fun little shootout, and he and Dom become friends, which is epic. I mean, this handshake is so stupid, but it just works. But the new plan is just to have The Rock blunt force through the police station wall to drive the safe around. Now don't get me wrong, I love the finale, and it's probably better that it is this way, but the movie is just slightly too long. And while The Rock and Tyree do their best, this movie really is just all about its finale. It's the only thing people remember about it. Sure, I'm pretty sure even with a chassis, 2 Chargers would be torn in half trying to drag around a 10-ton super safe, let alone 1 Charger. But there's just so much great shit here. Brian and Dom are just throwing that thing through buildings, stopping to slingshot it through incoming police. I don't even know what you call Dom's big finishing move when he somehow launches the safe, then his own car to crush both of the villains' cars. It's just a hilariously ridiculous and fun time, and it goes on for like 25 minutes. And the big reveal that the fake safe wasn't just for practice and that the gang got away with it is not really that clever, but it is very fun to watch The Rock realize it. And I really liked the whole "where are they now" closer for the movie. It is like such a fun scene that just overwrites any little issue that the movie had before it to a crazy extent. This movie is its final action scene. Fast 5 is a great reinvention of the series. Even 4, a movie I think I like a little bit better than this one, struggles with sticking to the street racing thing as it became increasingly restrictive. Breaking free of that for a silly and crazy heist movie is an absolute hell of a way to bring us to the series' next era, and boy is it an era. That's not to entirely discredit Fast 5. I mean, it is a very fun movie. I think The Rock was a fantastic addition who perfectly matches Vin Diesel's energy at this time at least, although the two would get into some endless feud of stupid weird. They're both fucking weirdos. That's not my thing to get into. And I really like the fact that they just kind of decided the whole cast from all these movies was coming together and just getting smashed together in this big dumb action figure movie. I will not be doing any more movies in this video. This is my last one, so I'm glad I got to talk with you guys about these ones. I had a lot of fun with this, and you guys are just about to get to the best parts.
Fast and Furious 6 is next. It's the middle chapter to the Han Return trilogy, but the last film before Han disappears for a while. And the start of the Shaw family trilogy. I don't know if those are real pairings for the films, but it's the most accurate way I can place it. It's the third movie in the pre-Tokyo Drift prequels featuring Han, and it is the first film to feature the Shaw brothers as major antagonists. Anyhow, a fifth and sixth movie were announced in 2010 concurrently, with the franchise really ramping up at the time following the success of the pseudo relaunch with Fast and Furious, which Aiden just talked about. You know, not to be confused with The Fast and the Furious, the first film. You knew what I meant though. Chris Morgan, who has written every installment of the franchise since Tokyo Drift, continued to work on this one. The film was made with a conscious step away from racing in mind. Fast and Furious and Fast 5 both had some racing despite more non-racing elements, but with the introduction of the Shaws, we start seeing these become more spy thrillers, perhaps even more superhero films with cars. I mean, look at the shit Vin Diesel can do. They would have been obliterated in real life, but these films no longer occupy space within reality. Alright, so the plot. Dom and the gang all struck it rich following the events of Fast 5. Dom is still dating Elena, which started after the death of Letty, but oops, turns out Letty's alive and the gang need to save her. Poor Elena seems to be on the outs.
It's Letty, isn't it?
It's impossible.
Hobbs brought this info to Dom, so naturally the crew comes together, and they all learn about Owen Shaw, who is making a super EMP weapon to sell, and Owen himself has a crew of racers, including Letty, who has convenient amnesia and can't remember Dom or her friends. Eventually, they find the Shaw's headquarters, but it was a trap. Well, his crew does a heist at Interpol. Anyways, Shaw flees, and the gang follows Letty, who comes face to face with Dom and ends up shooting him, not recognizing him due to super amnesia, but Dom is determined because of family or whatever. Brian goes into prison to talk to Braga, the villain of Fast and Furious. Turns out, after Letty was shot, Owen took her into his crew due to her good old case of amnesia. Anyhow, Brian gets out of jail pretty quickly and meets with the crew once again. Guess bro never heard of visiting hours, since I can't really fathom why he wouldn't just use an alias or something to visit the prisoner rather than doing all this. But anyways, Letty and Dom race, but she stays with Shaw. Anyhow, cut ahead a bit and the big dramatic car chase happens on a highway. Owen just slaughtering people and trying to kill the crew. Anyhow, Letty and Shaw are in a tank and the crew manage to pull it off the bridge. Letty getting launched and saved by Dom, so she rejoins the crew despite the memory loss. Owen is captured with his gang, though Shaw had a backup plan, capturing Mia, so they walk off and, oh yeah, lightly notable side character Riley double-crossed the team and leaves with Shaw. Oh well, whatever. Anyhow, the gang is chased down by Shaw, who's going to flee in a big airplane, leading to a fight race thing on a tarmac that's like 700 miles long. Apparently, this shit never ends. Anyhow, that goes pretty well. But sadly, Gal Gadot decides she wants to leave the films and do other things, so she pretty much unceremoniously dies. Oh wait.
No way.
Never mind, I guess. She does shoot a guy on her way out, though. Anyhow, the crew gets sweetheart pardons. The group have a barbecue, but Elena realizes that Letty is back in the series and she no longer has a plot function, so she leaves. In a post-credit scene, we see Han's death.
You don't know me. You're about to.
Oh wait. Okay, so Dom is the lead this time. He is out to get Shaw after his seemingly deceased girlfriend is actually alive and well. He hopes to get her back to protect his family and whatever, you get it. Letty is alive and she has amnesia. She doesn't know who to align with, but after repeatedly being saved by Dom and he shows to care for her, even following her shooting him, she rejoins the team, and despite her amnesia, she still tries figuring shit out with Dom. Brian O'Connor is now a dad. Mia and his son Jack staying behind in safety till things get unsafe later on. Mia respects that this is what he has to do. Let's see, he drives fast and wants to fight Shaw. He goes to prison briefly. I don't know. Brian O'Connor's just the everyman. Luke Hobbs has turned his opinion around on the gang a bit and brings them in to fight Shaw and capture his EMP. Hobbs has an assistant, Riley, who works with him till she doesn't. Then she's evil, then she dies. Roman Pierce is the comic relief. He's a giant dumbass who becomes stupider by the film from here. Tej is the tech guy and still the straight man to Roman Pierce. Han is in love with Giselle, and that goes well, but then she seems to die and he gets sad for a minute. But then he seems to die in a retcon where Jason Statham's Shaw comes to kill him during the events of Tokyo Drift. Though that gets retconned later in both cases. They're both alive. Giselle loves Han and dies, or, not really, I guess. Elaine loves Dom, but when Letty returns, she more or less fucks off from the main cast, and this is pretty much it for her, for now at least. This film has a rap-heavy soundtrack, including the first song in the series by See You Again creator Wiz Khalifa. But 2 Chainz, Lil Wayne, Deadmau 5, Cypress Hill, and T.I. show up here, and the soundtrack is your good but fairly generic cinematic rap music. Stephen Winden does the cinematography, and he's pretty much the house cinematographer for the series, and it works pretty well, though probably the strangest shot of the series happens here. The Rock's head looks fucking giant, and Vin Diesel looks like a literal child. Christian Wagner edited the film, and he also works on a lot of these films. It's fine. Perhaps a bit long in the first half, which is pretty boring, but set pieces all work pretty well and are stitched together fine. I really wish more happened early on. For some reason, the plot was just really dull, and the few smaller action scenes in the first half couldn't really stop my eyes from glazing over a little bit. With that said, the car chases towards the finale really kick ass, especially the highway chase with tanks and jumps and explosions. It's all so testosterone fueled and badass. I absolutely love it. I like how 2 people who die in this film both had their deaths retconned, but that's for later. I think following Paul Walker's death in real life, Fast and Furious kind of went a little bit easier on real world stakes, and as a matter of fact, this whole movie's about canceling out the stakes since we see the return of Letty, so no one dies.
Furious 7. More like Bi-Curious 7. I'm not lying when I say that Furious 7 is a masterpiece of a generation. The perfect culmination of a film that combines everything amazing that comes from franchises that last this long, putting it together with flippant, uncaring attitudes towards plot and relevance. It's gallivanting as if some metaphorical peacock flaunting feathers, saying, yeah, this shit's fucking amazing, and you're gonna respect that. God unto man brought this film so that we may rejoice as one and hold hands across the world in agreement to the notion that Furious 7 is, and always will be, the perfect film. And that God was James Wan. Yeah, the Saw guy. I don't know what brought him to this point in his career, sandwiched between The Conjuring 2 and whatever the fuck else he was doing at that time. But they said, hey, do you want to do Furious 7? And he was like, well, only if I can take the piss real hard. And then they shook hands and penises. Honestly, Furious 7 is the perfect storm. Lightning in a bottle in terms of a studio giving free rein to a director that was actually talented and knew what he wanted from his film. This wasn't some figurehead like whoever did Suicide Squad 1 back in 2012 or whatever. No, he had a vision. James Wan had a vision. Let's just do whatever's funny and stupid and pump as much money into that as fucking possible. Let's just pop the movie in. Jason Statham calls Dom at the end of 6, but also at the beginning of this film. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Last villain from 6 actually lived, just horribly scarred and basically in a medical coma for the film, and now Jason's on a revenge quest and fucking kills Dom and blows up Dom's house, and holy shit, Jason is just chewing the scenery here. He's a villain and he fucking loves it. He's honestly the best part of this movie, and it's a bold decision to have him just know where Dom and co are at all times and torment the cast. It's incredible and stupid. Like, they go to Dubai at one point and Jason just shows up in the elevator and shoots up the place. It's incredibly funny, and I can't get past it in a good way. Oh, hey, Race Wars is back. Race War! Race War! Your neighbors are gonna love us. It's not like we haven't shouted worse. This movie is a lot of fun, and most of that comes from how serious it takes its own world, and at the same time constantly looks at the audience and smiles like a... It fondles your balls and kisses your neck and... Just cut it. cut right there. I fucking love this shit. Jason Statham shows up to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's work and harasses him, stealing information about Dom and his crew so he can go harass them instead. There's a horribly schlocky fight scene where Jason blows up the place and Dwayne jumps out of the second story of his office and lands on a car, incapacitated temporarily for most of the film. It's great, really stowing him away for now and, you know, power leveling him in a way that seems normal, all building up to a climax that comes at you fast and loose. But we'll talk about that later. The fight choreography in this film is great. They went above and beyond, making things look frantic and believable. It's best shown here with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Statham, where they're not just punching each other, each one moves with attempts to tip the advantage in their way. It's smarter than I would expect from a movie like this, where after 6, I'm sure they didn't care anymore. The lax attitude towards the direction of the series really benefits 7, like I said. So little studio oversight means that James Wan can just do whatever he wanted. And he wanted to make the dumbest shit ever. Where's Han? Not a minute is wasted in this 2-hour, 20-minute film. Each scene is jam-packed with plot relevance, and despite this, it never feels like too much is going on. They know the formula, never one to dwell on a scene too long or leave me confused about where we are in the plot. Again and again, this movie explains the stakes, locations, people, relations, and it's easy to keep up with. Like the movie is being directly beamed into my brain and not a moment of lag between the two's communication. Dom visits The Rock, blah blah, Dom goes home, Han explodes in Tokyo at the end of 3, but it's in this film too, and Jason calls Dom saying, "Hey dipshit, you don't know who I am, but you're about to," and then a mail bomb goes off on Dom's porch, destroying his house. Sweet. Stakes were introduced with the first scene in the movie, where Jason visits his brother, and there's this great shot of him walking out around all the chaos that had occurred off screen before the film started. All these people on the ground, and the evidence of the gunfire, it establishes his power level in a minute, and his hard-on for revenge being his defining character trait with zero depth beyond that, seems to harken back to Saturday morning villains. In a movie like this, the lack of depth is hilarious because he exists solely to harass Dom and his family, and will literally do anything in his power to inconvenience or try to harm them. It's almost a running joke that Jason just knows where they are at all moments and shows up like some sort of comedic "It Follows" monster, constantly veering in the direction of Dom at a snail's pace. I wouldn't be surprised if Jason's character simply walked through an ocean to show up at the Burj Khalifa in Dubai to shoot at Dom. Gal Gadot is still dead, never coming back, not even if they make 10 of these. Dom goes to Tokyo to retroactively make the third film canon. They use archival footage of Tokyo Drift, and this character, who is canonically 18, goes from looking 26 to looking 40 in one jump cut. What did they mean by this? Like, they didn't want to reshoot the scene, and I don't blame them. But, like, this happens, and then this scene is somehow the least believable in the movie. Tokyo Drift says Han was a real G, one of the good ones, and then nudges his shoulder. Dom collects the corpse of somebody who's definitely Han, and swears revenge on somebody who definitely killed Han off screen in a movie that's now technically canon. Undeniably canon. Do you think that Brazilian woman is still alive from 5? You didn't cream pie her, did you? They hold a funeral for Han, and Jason fucking shows up to taunt them, and they have a big stupid race in the middle of a cemetery. Like, why? Why are they doing this? Surely they could have just raced elsewhere. Why is Jason such a dick? Like, he doesn't even snipe them or kill them immediately. He just harasses them and leaves. Don chases Jason into a secluded location, and they play chicken. And then Dom gets out with like a tire iron or a sledgehammer, and then menaces him and is like, I'm gonna break your legs, and then gets shot at.
That this was gonna be a street fight?
Dom's saved by some guys with guns, and then they try to capture Dom, but he beats them up and calls them nerds and steps on their cocks and says, PayPal me, pay pig. No, but they're the good guys doing such and such. I don't really remember, honestly, for all that talk about the movie communicating well enough. I think it's more my part being stupid. They're here on behalf of Kurt Russell, who is some shady guy who works outside of government supervision and honestly seems to be a good guy. You know he's a good guy because Dom trusts him immediately. And also, he's Kurt Russell, and Kurt Russell is just the kind of guy I'd let borrow $100 immediately. Like, if he just shot me that smile, I'd sink to my knees and suck his dick immediately, you know? Dry. Like, whatever he wanted to do with me, you know? Yeah, trustworthy. I think I just came. 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 This is more or less how the movie handwaves that this kind of character, being utterly shady, is actually completely friendly. The movie is saying, this is a good guy, don't worry, he's not gonna pull anything or double cross or be a dick, just trust me. And the movie isn't lying. It really is a masterclass example of introducing characters succinctly in their first scene, showing motivations and power levels. Some guy stole a superpowered AI machine that can locate any face on the world and tell you where that person is, and I need some super good drifters and drivers who can drive super good so they can steal the machine back and give it to me to keep out of the hands of evil. Dom says, okay, but I need a crew. And Kurt just kind of smiles and says, yeah, we know. And then it pans out to the crew already being there and waiting, and Kurt Russell more or less just says, here's a blank check, have fun, which I believe is what the studio said to James Wan before he filmed this. They get in a big fucking cargo plane with a bunch of cars, and then the cargo doors open and everyone drops out in a big stupid car parachute scene, and they land on the highway in a mountain to tail the semi-truck and convoy. It's the dumbest shit I've ever seen, and I loved every second of it. Especially when Luda kills Tyrese by pushing him out of a plane unprepared and unwilling to jump. The action scene that follows is balls to the wall, and I loved every second of it. The stupid car parachutes, the stupid driving that leads to Paul jumping onto the semi and having a kung fu fight with this sexy, tight Asian man, Paul Walker jumping from a semi that falls off a cliff, and Michelle Rodriguez doing a sick drift off a cliff so he can catch her spoiler and she can save him. It's Kino. And then Dom gets harassed by Jason Statham, who's assumably just jumped off of a mountain with the same kind of car parachute, or just kind of knew everything that was going on separate of himself. Then there's a scene immediately after where they all talk with God's Eye. Yeah, this woman is God's Eye, aka Ramsey, or the key to God's Eye. She can activate the software or something. So Dom's trafficking a human now. They save the trafficky. They're not trafficking. God's Eye says something Dubai, and then Dom and friends go to Dubai. They hit up the Burj Khalifa and infiltrate a party, like James Bond style. Like, there's antics. T-Pain is there for some reason too. Ronda Rousey's in here too. There's this big fight with Michelle Rodriguez at some point, and then Michelle like rips her skirt, and then they mud wrestle, and I get a little horny, and then I get a little chub, you know, a little half chub going, and then Aiden and Connor had to pause the film because I had to keep going to the bathroom and take cold showers every time Michelle Rodriguez shows off those sexy masculine legs of hers. Jason takes the elevator and shoots the place up, and Dom and Brian steal this sweet car to jump the Burj Khalifa. It's insane. God, it's great. Fuck. I can't believe how crazy they go in this film. Digimon. Digital monsters, Digimon are the champion. We get a montage of everybody prepping for the end of the film. It's so masculine, and it made my balls drop a second time. It might not feel like it, but we're already at the climax of the film. It moved along so quickly and so sure of itself that we got here and I didn't even notice. That said, we still have 40 minutes of fucking around left, more or less, and I cannot emphasize just how utterly amazing every second is. The main protagonists have to counter-hack the helicopter guys so he can't use God's eye while he shoots at them, and they play hot potato with Ramsey and do a bunch of stupid, sweet-ass tricks and flips with their car. It's Kino. It's the best a film can ever be and ever will be. It really is about family, as Carrie Fisher once famously said before getting jettisoned out the cockpit of a spaceship floating off into space and freezing to death. Jesus fucking Christ. All hope seems lost when she gets super close to the 100% counter hack and a drone comes to kill them, but then Dwayne the Daddy's Gotta Go to Work Johnson crashes a stolen ambulance onto the drone from above and then steals the drone's minigun for himself. Counter hack successful, Digimon is basically foiled but wants to Predator drone California. I mean, honestly, just let him do it. I don't see the harm here. So he does his thing while Dom finally confronts Jason on top of a parking garage.
You thought this was gonna be a street fight? You're goddamn right it is.
Big punch-ups ensue, fucking sick. Cool-ass Jason vs. Dom, love it. Helicopter shows up and levels the garage, and Dom uses the rubble to ramp his charger off of it and plant a bag of grenades on the helicopter. And then Dwayne, the ambulance-stealing Johnson, shoots that shit with a revolver. God, this shit is just Digimon, the digital monster, dies in a big helicopter explosion or something, and Jason begrudgingly accepts Dom's offer to let bygones be bygones. Jason then completes his character arc. First, he was mad, and now, he's not mad. I love this movie. Every scene drips with a visceral authenticity that I have never seen before or since. Everything about this film is perfect in every aspect, and not a single second is wasted from start to finish. James Wan's magnum opus, for all intents and purposes, will be this film. If he ever says otherwise, he's lying. What can be said that hasn't already been said? It's perfect in a way that cannot be recreated. Nobody sits down to create their opus. Usually opuses just happen because an artist has hit their stride and outside factors line up in such a way for things to be a perfect storm of creativity. Ghostbusters, Citizen Kane, Groundhog Day, Alien, The Dark Knight, Brental Floss's Dr. Mario. All great and made in a perfect storm of timing and execution. Furious 7 tops them all and is a modern-day masterpiece, gracing our generation with the utter peak of schlock. 7 will always hold a special place in my heart because honestly, it just knew what the audience wanted. James Wan was so in touch with the zeitgeist of people's wants and himself had enough leeway with studios to convince them to give him utter creative control. And besides Citizen Kane, that is the only time it had ever been a good idea. At the end of the film, the send-off to Paul Walker's character is a bit touching. It really seems like these are all the actors themselves saying goodbye to Paul after working with him for over a decade. It's a little bit emotionally manipulative, but I think the movie has earned its indulgences. Furious 7 is not only the best Fast and Furious film, it is the best film, period. 9 out of 10. The Fate of the Furious. FNF 8 had no fucking chance, not a snowball's chance in hell of being as good as the movie prior in the series. Nobody could compete with 7, not even films outside of the franchise, and 7 wrapped up so perfectly that I honestly can't think of why they'd even attempt to continue milking this cash cow. Do you think that anything in 8 could come close to 7's grandeur, to even glimpse its level in the cast? No. It's such an unfair comparison that I don't feel good making it to begin with. That 8 is robbed of its value by simple virtue of its existence. Where do you go from 7? Where can you go from 7? James Wan refused to come back, or was probably too busy directing Conjuring 2 to care. He probably knew 7 was an incredible project that would never be topped, and that he should not even try to top it.
Leave without saying goodbye.
Or maybe his famous one for them, one for me mentality was already in full effect, and he was bound to milk The Conjuring as much as the studios wanted him to. I mean, I don't blame him, you know. If I made my magnum opus and somebody asked me to return and make something better, I'd have to tell them something like, Dead Rising Part 2 will be out when it's out. I remember loving 7 in the theaters, so I'm glad on rewatch not only did it hold up, but it bolstered my opinion that it is the greatest movie ever made. It doesn't need justification past that. It just achieves such a truly uncontendable status. If Furious 7 were a person, it would be Michael Jordan, Gandhi, you know, really one of a kind. Whereas 8 is more like Shaq, Mother Teresa. It exists in the shadow of something greater than itself. Stakes need to be raised, obviously. You can't go back to heisting VCR CRT TVs after blowing up a helicopter with a bag of grenades. Well, you could, but it might be a little boring in comparison. There's been talks that Fast and Furious 11 will soft reset the franchise in some regard, but a soft reset would have been better done right here at 8. Because, as stated, there's no way you can top 7. Instead, we go from the crazy action of the last movie to a new sort of parallel crazy type of action in this one. Dom becomes a bad guy. Ugh, that's fucked, bro. 8 starts out with a pretty fun street race where a cocky rich kid defeats some loser and then gloats about it. Dom intervenes and says that he can drive any car better than the rich kid. After some modifications, like removing the bumper and rigging the intake with a pop can tab so it can be yanked for a makeshift nitro boost.
The only thing that matters is who's behind the wheel.
There's a lot of things I like in this first set piece. It's a return to the series' low-stakes roots, racing for pink slips with cars that aren't too fancy or kitted out. Plus, even as someone who's not a car aficionado, I love seeing older cars racing. It just vibes aesthetically. Dom wins the race because he's a better driver. But when the loser offers his keys, Dom tells him to keep his car. It's not about kicking someone when they're down, it's about earning respect. Is Fast and Furious just Naruto?
Believe it!
Dom goes home, fucks Letty, and then stops to help someone with car trouble, which rug pull, the woman shows Dom something on her phone, and suddenly his expression changes.
Oh, you're gonna want to work for me. You're gonna betray your brothers, abandon your code, and shatter your family.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is assembling a team. Dom, get these 5 guys who drive kind of good and let's go steal an EMP device. Family. Corona. You never had your car. Sir, Dom Toretto stole an EMP, and Kurt Russell assembles a team of 5 street racing punks who can kind of drive well and tells them to figure this shit out. And also his son is there because it's Bring Your Son to Work Day, and everyone should go easy on him because if he gets too embarrassed, he will come in his pants. Hey, lady. Oh wait, no, they're holding his ex-lover hostage. This is weird.
Wait.
Like, really weird, you know? Kind of like you'd think maybe this woman would try and get in touch with Dom at some point, you know, like, hey, I'm pregnant. Yeah, it's yours. Did Dom, like, ghost her calls or something? Honestly, I believe that he believed there was no harm done, and maybe the women should have said something sooner. I'm not going to go into the court dealings. He was right to do it. We can't have all these women pregnant. The fact that this movie exists at all means they're vehemently anti-audience. Fuck it. Milk the magic until the magic is gone. I wonder what The Rock is up to. Oh, hey, this is pretty good. They should make a whole spin-off about Hobbs and Shaw.
Your mom. Genocide, schmenocide.
The prison escape sequence with The Rock and Jason Statham is pretty fun for what it is. Some banter between the two as they leave their cells and fight their way out. There's a lot of life in this scene, and the two chewing the scenery here in a way kind of harkens back to 7. Wait, is this the movie with the stupid car zombie thing? Oh fuck, this is utterly amazing, Jesus Christ. A few of these action scenes are a lot of fun. Like the opening race and this zombie horde chase thinly disguised as a car chase action scene. I think it's really creative, and there aren't many movies that have done anything like this. Despite that sort of flair, I just don't enjoy my time with 8, and I can't find the words to describe it. It's like finishing an amazing game that really had you on the edge of your seat and engrossed in the story, the character interactions, the atmosphere of the world it created.
When you find the guy that killed Han, what are you gonna do?
And then the sequel comes out and it's trying its hardest to be something it isn't, to appeal to fans of something else.
You see these cameras in here?
The whole threat of nuclear launch from a submarine and the guys just kind of racing at it and then going inside and disarming it and then racing the submarine on ice but also outrunning everyone. Yeah, sure, lots of fun. These are the kind of set pieces I can get behind, and in theory I love this film all the way, from its stupidity to its unclear messaging and morals, but like, we're towards the end at this point and all I can think of is fuck, I can't wait till it's over, and that speaks volumes. Something is just wearing me down with every passing minute, and it makes me want to check my watch more and more. If anything, I'd say the fate of the Furious was more or less the last nail in the coffin of the series, and I'd speculate that to be the case.
The agency has turned its back on everything it stood for.
A tailspin on its way to the bottom as more and more bits of metaphorical planes started tearing off and losing structure. Again, I feel like a lot of this movie works in theory. It has those plot points that should be fun little twists, like Dom being a villain and Tyrese not paying his child support.
And no one's listening because no one's in the courtroom. I'm not doing anything illegal.
But when executed, it just feels like a slog. This was made worse by Aiden and Connor's horrible idea to watch the extended editions of these already way too long movies. It's not so bad at the start of the franchise, you know, Fast and Furious 1 and 2, 90 minutes here, 100 minutes there. But now that we're this far into the series, every film is like 143 minutes, and the extended edition makes it 150. What the fuck did the extended edition add? There's a really fun scene where Jason Statham saves the baby by flying into the plane on a wingsuit and then gunning down evil henchmen while carrying the baby around.
Go for a ride.
Maybe it would look better without me looking at my watch the whole time. How the fuck did they make this movie so long? And they have the balls to let the villain escape in some big stupid, see ya, I'll be back again probably. We'll see if this movie does good enough at the box office. Going back and reviewing the footage, I'd have to say that I'd prefer if this movie was a soft reboot, some low-stakes street racing again to juxtapose itself with 7's balls-to-the-wall bullshit. 8 was the perfect point for some sort of soft reset, or passing of the torch, especially with Paul Walker's death and his character's retirement. Having gotten this far in the series, I can say that it definitely peaks at 7, and it's a landslide in terms of quality after that. Apparently, Vin Diesel has expressed interest in Paul Walker's character returning for 11, and they're AIing Paul Walker into the next movie. I ain't gonna pay no child support.
Hobbs and Shaw was my blind spot. The first Fast and Furious spin-off left me with little interest. What can I say? I'm a simple Vin Diesel fan. So when we did the draft and this was still available, I decided to go for the mystery pick and wound up on Hobbs Shaw. In 2017, it was announced by Universal they were going to do a spin-off with The Rock and Jason Statham's characters, Hobbs and Shaw, respectively. This being the first Fast and Furious spin-off. Better Luck Tomorrow is, in a way, a spin-off, but really it was a spin-off of Tokyo Drift, which itself was sort of a spin-off, but all of that just added the Han character. Just some weirdness from director Justin Lin, though this was the first film intended as a launching pad for a pseudo-cinematic universe, or at least a suite of spin-offs. Though 7 years on, no more spin-offs have come to pass. Perhaps after the supposed final entry, Fast Forever, we'll get more, but for now, this is it. Anyhow, Chris Morgan, Fast and the Furious' house writer since Tokyo Drift, wanted to write it as more of a spy movie. Cars are a little less integral to this one. David Leitch was the first known person attached to direct, and he landed it, getting fresh off of Deadpool 2. Though also having worked on the original John Wick, he was a solid enough choice to direct, and has since continued to work pretty consistently. Before this, he was a second unit director and also a stunt coordinator. Has mostly worked in the Wicksploitation genre, with films like Atomic Blonde, Bullet Train, Nobody, Violent Night, Love Hurts, and the Wick sequels are among his other credits in one capacity or another. The story of this film follows Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw, who live parallel lives as weird super spy and weird super criminal, kind of, respectively, but also he's just kind of a super spy. Turns out Shaw has another sibling, this time it's a sister Hattie, who has a super virus, Snowflake, uploaded into her DNA, and soon it will infect the world, burning everyone from the inside, so she's the living MacGuffin, being chased by cyborg Brixton Lore, who has super eyeballs that allow him to beat the hell out of people, and who answers to a super AI.
Here comes the kryptonite.
Anyways, Hobbs and Shaw are sent out and forced to team up, but they hate each other. Oh boy.
That's not gonna work. I think it'll work fine.
Anyhow, they find Hattie and try helping her get the virus removed and contained as Brixton follows them place to place. Blah blah blah, they get to Samoa and have no guns, so they go to war with a group of The Rock's family members fighting old Samoan street style. Eventually beating Brixton and containing the virus, Brixton dies. You get it.
You save that world. You don't save the world with genocide. Genocide, schmenocide.
But if I win, I take the cash and I take the respect.
Luke Hobbs loves his daughter but needs to stop the apocalyptic virus. He teams up with Deckard Shaw, who hates him, and he's really good at fighting. Eventually he gets into a bit of a romance with Hattie, and eventually needs to recruit his estranged Samoan family to help him beat the hell out of Brixton and his army of mercenaries. He has very little character to speak of, but there is a neatish behind-the-scenes story to this. The people he fights with are mostly real Samoans. One of the most notable characters, Mateo Hobbs, is played by Roman Reigns, wrestler and former Minnesota Viking. I only mention that because I'm from Minnesota. Oh, the director also went to the University of Minnesota. It feels like a real family affair for me, since I'm from Minnesota. You know, like Fast and Furious.
Pass it down. Each generation better than the last.
That's true.
Anyhow, Roman Reigns is actually cousins with The Rock in real life. They're both part of the Inoue family, a family with deep roots in wrestling going back to the 1960s, with numerous wrestlers in the family joining the WWE and all those other wrestling offshoots. It's kind of neat to see that, I suppose, and kind of a fun family connection, so that was fun. Deckard Shaw joins to save his semi-estranged sister Hattie, who as kids was his partner in crime. I guess forget Owen, he's not in this. Anyhow, he wants to save his sister and is opposed to working with Hobbs, their egos clashing the whole time. He's concerned about his sister, and yeah, that's basically it. Hattie Shaw is Deckard's sister. She has a chemistry-less romance with Hobbs and fights with the duo, having the Snowflake virus downloaded into her. She's played by Vanessa Kirby and is decent, if a bit MacGuffin-y as a character. She mostly sits there shaking her head at her brother and Hobbs' toxic masculinity. SMH my head.
You wouldn't understand that because you don't have any friends.
Brixton Lore used to work with Shaw at MI6, but soon betrays his country to work with the cyber cult under Etion, this AI thing. He wants the snowflake to kill a bunch of humanity and create a new robo-society, kind of basic AI overlords arc thing.
You know, I think AI will probably, like most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies created with serious machine learning.
He yells stuff like, "This is the next evolution of humanity," and whatnot. You get it. They basically fight him here and there, and only through the power of teaming up can Hobbs and Shaw be in sync enough to beat the masterful AI man. He is eventually beaten, and the AI turns on him, killing him and shutting down his own AI. Ryan Reynolds cameos as a CIA agent.
Dr. Pavel, I'm CIA.
It wasn't alone.
You don't get to bring friends.
No, not nearly as funny as Aidan Gillen's CIA from The Dark Knight Rises. He does the Ryan Reynolds shtick, and that's about it.
What does the snowflake do?
Oh, nothing much. Just liquefies your internal organs. Basically turns your body into a giant bag of hot soup.
I take the respect.
Kevin Hart shows up as Victor Locke, an air marshal who helps the duo a bit and wants to be a badass super spy instead of a goober who may or may not step up and stop the next 9/11. He has an important job, but yet he's a giant fucking goober doing Kevin Hart shtick. These are just weird comic relief cameos from some of The Rock's famous co-stars and friends, and it's just another example of The Rock throwing people that is somehow related to him within this film. The tone of this is an action-packed spy thriller. It is an action scene a minute kind of film. In a way, it's so much action that it kind of just gets boring. I don't know if that's contradictory, but as I said, there really isn't much to the characters. It's kind of just mindless action. The film kind of feels like those really bad G.I. Joe films from like 15 years ago. You know, The Rise of Cobra. There's a lot of action, but just the most vapid set of characters ever put to film. One thing that kind of hurts the post-7 Fast and Furious film franchise is the lack of grounding from Brian, since, you know, Paul Walker died, but this film doesn't even have the variety of characters like Ludacris and Tyree as the joke characters, the women to be the love interests, or Vin Diesel, the pseudo-normal guy who is absurdly ripped and has super action drama. It's just so ungrounded because it's just these two action men doing action man shit. You have Hattie, but she's kind of a nothing character, to be frank. She's a living MacGuffin. It lifts off from the jump, and at no point does it ever want to take us back down at all. The Samoa stuff is calm for a few minutes, but it's mostly shoot explosions, start to end. And while there is admittedly some great action, and the towing helicopter scene is a real cool moment, it almost feels vapid, and there is so much action it starts getting kind of boring. Like, I don't know, I need something to sink my teeth into besides shoot explosion. It really wants to be goofy fun like the other Fast and Furious movies, but misses that X factor that made 4 to 7 such effective action films. And that X factor is a mental break and some characters that aren't just action men and nothing else. And even Vin Diesel has a very special presence in these films that I think kind of helps bring something out that The Rock and Jason Statham as a combo just don't have.
Nothing sadder than locking a beast in a cage.
The soundtrack is mostly alternative rap, but nothing stood out here to me. There are people I like Grandson and Cypress Hill, but others on here are Logic, Aloha Black, and a cover of Jim Croce, one of my favorite artists by Youngblood for some reason. He decided he was going to do the cover. Jonathan Slaya shows up to do cinematography. He's worked with David Leitch a bunch, and you know, he's solid. It's definitely modern and digital, but it is well shot for a modern blockbuster and looks slightly different than the other Fast and Furious movies, but fits in line well enough that you're not really going to notice if you're not paying close attention. The editing was done by veteran Christopher Rouse, and it's done pretty well. This guy can kick together some action scenes. Overall, I wish there was more to it. I found it at times highly entertaining, and at other times I found it very boring. But I think that's kind of the issue with hyper action-packed films led by action men designed exclusively to put out action scenes and nothing else. I mean, these two are action stars through and through, and they're led by an action movie director. It makes sense, but for me it's just kind of boring and falls flat, since I feel both of these characters without other characters to bounce off of that aren't macho action men are just kind of boring.
What a name, Jesus H. Christ. Who would have thought this is a good idea? F9. Mama, can we go see Fast and Furious 9? Timmy, I told you it's F9. Now say it right! I don't know if Connor or Aiden have touched on it yet, but for some bizarre reason, the naming structure of these movies changed for each entry. The Fast and the Furious changed to Fast and Furious retroactively. Too Fast, Too Furious, The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Fast ampersand Furious, Fast 5, Fast ampersand Furious 6, Furious 7, The Fate of the Furious, Hobbs Shaw, and now F9? What the fuck kind of name is F9? How does that look on a poster? Oh, that's how it looks. Bad. Not to mention the movie after this is Fast X. Like what the fuck is going on here? Who thought to do this? Was this decision made at 4? The first movie was a straightforward title. They're fast, and they're furiously good at stealing Toshiba CRT VCR TVs. The first movie has a straightforward title. They're fast, and they're furiously good at stealing Toshiba CRT VCR TVs. Too Fast, Too Furious. Okay, we're already changing the convention, but no big whoop. We're at the second movie. No pattern has been established yet. Okay, but then like, The Fast and The Furious Tokyo Drift. This movie was a gamble, apparently, so I understand why they'd make it more of a spin-off instead of a proper sequel, although it'd be made a proper sequel retroactively in the spirit. Plus, drifting is a completely different kind of racing compared to drag or circuit. Like, the main obstacle is tight corners and having to drift around them while maintaining speed. So yeah, sure, make it a spin-off, but like, suddenly we're on to 4 and they wholeheartedly stopped caring and just have started having fun with the plots. Dom has to investigate Letty's murder and joins Paul Walker's character in investigating a drug lord. Something race across the border, something Dong kills a man in cold blood, but it's fine. Fast 5, we go to Brazil and kill hundreds of civilians on the sidewalk off screen while we're flinging around a big fucking vault. Steal money, get paid, clear names, whatever. Fuck it. Luda! We're getting more absurd with every entry, and it's starting to get to a point where things become campy in a good way. We're ramping up to when shit hit the fan, and we go full balls to the wall bullshit in Fast and Furious 6. Big runway, Gal Gadot dies, etc., etc. Each entry gets worse in name and plot until it all culminates in Furious 7. They're not even fast anymore, they're just fucking pissed. What the fuck is the fate of the Furious? Like, there's not even an 8 in there. We're just supposed to know what's going on? Oh, wait. Fate. Are the creators of this film just saying definitively that the audience should stop caring about it by Fate of the Furious? Like, obviously not. The number of returns in F9, this isn't a spin-off or anything. It's just flat out the 9th film in this cursed franchise that has somehow stretched over the span of 22 years by Fast X. This franchise is old enough to drink a Corona. In this movie, we're treated to some flashbacks of... Is that supposed to be Dom? What is Vin Diesel? Like, is he Mexican? Filipino? Black? Flashbacks of Dom and a hereunto never mentioned brother that grew up to be... oh, come on! White. Like white. When checking my notes, I literally had to ask myself if John Cena was the main villain of this one. And then I remember that we are operating on Naruto Shippuden rules and that every enemy of the last movie becomes a friend. So yeah, I guess John Cena is a little annoyed that... Hold on, I'm checking the Wikipedia. Oh fuck, why is this paragraph so long? Wait, why do my notes say Toretto NASCAR fade out? Play whatever you think that means. Dom's dad dies because John Cena did a thing to the engine so they could win a bet, but John Cena overdid it, I guess, and murdered his dad by accident. You're not supposed to know that yet. It's supposed to be a big, like, twist at the end of the film, but do you care? I see you. Just, you have this on in the background, don't you? You're eating dinner, you're working on whatever you're working on, it's just, you just want a recap of the film, don't you? Okay, so Dom goes to jail and tunes cars and then races his brother in the flashback and tells him to skip town. Opens at one restaurant, I guess, where Paul Walker gets called a nice friend. We go back to the present and Dom has a child from, you know, the Fate of the Furious that continues to exist in the script. The kid, the baby in 8, he's white. Like white. And in this, the kid is like a toddler, but more Mexican looking. And it's even worse in 10, where he's just full on black. Like, what did the hospital call Dom and say, hey, we kind of gave you the wrong baby? Maybe the kid in 10 is Luda's, and Luda was fucking that Brazilian cop from 5 who had the baby off screen. I don't know, man. That would kind of ruin the motivations in 8, though. Like, do you think Dom would have saved Luda's kid from captivity? Like, stolen an EMP for Luda's kid? Or where do you, like, pull Luda aside and be like, hey, sorry, bro, can't save them all? They're all doing their once-a-month meeting or whatever, but they're still acting like they have time for each other outside of life or death racing-related capers. Oh, yeah, sure. We'll stay friends outside of college. It's not like this friendship is completely predicated on how convenient it is to see you. No, I'll drive 40 minutes to see you every week. Paul Walker is still dead. His wife is sad. No, not the 15-year-olds he was dating when he wrapped his car around that tree. The wife on screen. The wife kind of has to become the Brian-esque stand-in in Brian's absence, so she doesn't really do much, but don't worry, Paul's totally fine. He's off at the gas station right now, getting milk and cigarettes. He's buying so much milk and cigarettes, he has been for the last 3 years. And we find out later in a flashback that Dom overheard a conversation he never actually overheard, that his dad wanted to rig the race and lose so he could win a lot of money or something. I don't know. This movie sucks. I don't remember the plot. Luda and Ramsey show up and they're like, oh, hey, Kurt Russell's plane got hijacked. And then Dom's like, must be John Cena. Letty and Brian's wife go to Tokyo and I don't know, they're trying to find evidence or something. Han's alive. Apparently Kurt Russell's plane had some hijacking thing on it that could hack a thing, but the villain needs the other part of the hack a thing to hack the planet. So Dom goes to find the thing while John Cena tries more or less to stop him, and John Cena, despite working with the villain from 8, has reservations and decides to turn tail and join Dom, and it's kind of a world tour vibe in this film, but to an extent I was getting to the point where I just didn't care. Wow, my favorite channel. Han says they need plot device to stop villain. Cool, I can see this writing was a pioneer in that it feels like it was written by AI before AI could write anything. The plot doesn't matter because it's being gauged by viewer interest, and by now we just weren't interested. That's the nature of the beast when you're 9 films deep in a series, plus a spin-off. They should have just completely stopped caring. Dom should have just been like, we need the big red button to stop the nukes, or wait, that's just the plot of 8. You don't need a dissection of the plot because the plot itself is struggling to maintain its own justification. They're trying to make it interesting, but we've jumped the shark. 7 was peak. We don't need 8. We don't need 9. Trying to maintain any semblance of a plot when we, the viewer, are expected to not care about it. Oh yeah, John Cena is kind of like Mexican face in this film, but in X, they totally forgot to hire the makeup girl to do the Mexican face again. I was told they go to space in this one, and I am disappointed. They go to space, but it's just Tyrese and Ludacris, and it's only for a little bit. I thought they were gonna be like racing on some huge space station and shit, like the end of Crash Team Racing, and those expectations set me up for proper disappointment later. What the fuck is this? Why is John Tokyo Drift here? Oh fuck, he's even older. Canonically, this character from Tokyo Drift is supposed to be like 30, but his actor is definitely like 50 when they shot this. I feel bad because he was already barely passing as a high school student when Tokyo Drift was first released, and now we're supposed to believe that only a little bit of time has passed since then. He's got crow's feet and shit. Bro looks like he's about to open a second mortgage on his house. He looks like he has 2 kids and is divorced. Jesus H. Christ, this movie was shot in a vacuum of bad ideas. Oh, Tokyo Drift is like canon. I thought it was just a cute callback in 7 to wrap up an entirely different plot, but like I didn't expect them to take this seriously. 7 was the peak of the franchise. They really should have just soft rebooted it, like I said in my 8 review. I can't believe they brought back Old Man Tokyo Drift for this movie. That's crazy, dog. It was already funny when they brought him back for 7, and he ages like 20 years between shots. I don't know, man. I think the director just loved him because he made the coming-of-age story about Han tapping ass and murdering a classmate, and then going back to high school to fuck high schoolers for like 5 more years before Kentucky bred forehead findsman FNF 3. I feel like retroactively making Jason Statham the guy who killed him in 6's post-credit scene in 7 is kind of retroactively made because Han survived because Kurt Russell bungee corded his belts and like yanked him out of a burning car. I don't know, like in 3, the explosion was seconds after the car flip, and then in 6, they extended to like 30 seconds. But in 9, they extended again to like a minute of Kurt Russell somehow pulling Han out, and then they watch the explosion together, and there's like a one-liner, and they're like in the middle of the street, and nobody saw this or said anything. Or Jason used his superpowered mind to just kind of vibe out that Han was still alive. You know, this movie sucks for a lot of reasons. I don't know why I'm getting caught up on this in particular. I could say that the action is mostly lackluster and they didn't have any confidence in their villain, so they had to bring 8's villain back, and that everybody on the cast looks just so tired all the time. I don't need to bury the lead here by saying Han's death and survival was the most outlandish thing in the movie. The most outlandish thing is that it got made at all. Did they have a body double in Han's coffin for the funeral in 7? Why is Cardi B in this film? They treat her like she's an old friend of Dom or something. I just can't. Although I do love the climax of this film, it's more or less the dumb fun I kind of expect from the franchise like this after a movie like 7. They're trying their hardest to bring the fun back, but this is the only instance where it feels Looney Tunes to me. Like surely the big stupid magnet that is pulling your car close to theirs and rocking theirs off course would also drag these parked cars nearby with it, but it doesn't. Moreover, their own cars are made of metal and moving parts. Combustion engines fire off fuel and shift pistons that can turn into torque that propel the car. Surely if the magnet was such a ludicrously strong thing, it would like ruin the car it's attached to before it ruins any other car in the vicinity. If I were Ludacris, I'd just hit him with my big hands. Dom wins, which is somewhat of a shakeup because he lost in 8 more or less, and the villain dies or something, and woo, family. My main takeaway from this film is that it shouldn't have been made. They should have curtailed the attempts to continue a franchise like this after 7, let alone after 8. John Cena was barely a presence, and even when he was in scenes, he didn't have much to do, really. They fixed this in the next movie, X, to a point, by making a whole C story with Dom's son, John Cena, and it ends in John Cena's death. Spoilers, but like, I don't know, having him suplex Fred from the Fred film he was in with Fred, and then wrestle with Dwayne the Wrestling Rock Johnson, that would have been better. This sucks. This movie sucks. God, I hate this movie. I wish I had more to say, but the fact that I can barely remember the plot minutes after watching it should tell you it exists in its own vacuum and gravitational pull. It's like a black hole of movies where your brain will disappear for 2 hours and then pop out on the other side slightly more gay. 3 out of 10. I don't care anymore.
Alright, well, we're finally here. We made it. The final Fast and Furious film, Fast X. Now, of course, Fast Forever is happening eventually, and I'll talk about that at some point. But for now, Fast X is perhaps one of Hollywood's most embarrassing failures and a movie I utterly despised in theaters. But you know what? I love it now. It's great. It's ungodly, over the top, stupid, and dumb, and that makes for one hell of a ride, and a film that sets up so much across its many hours and allegedly is set to pay off none of it if Vin Diesel's comments on Fast Forever are to be believed. Fast X was intended to be the last film, the 8th, 9th, and 10th film designed to end the series as early as 2014. Basically like how Quentin Tarantino promised to only do 10 films, that vibe, but Vin Diesel basically implied spin-offs would expand the series beyond this, but in terms of the main original series, this was to be it. Justin Lin, director of 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9, was brought on to bring the series to a close after directing nearly half the franchise and becoming the most prominent directorial force in the entire franchise, being hired on for 9 and set to return for 10 as well. Around this time, it was decided X was to become a 2-part conclusion, Fast X Part 1 and Fast X Part 2, presumably. From here, disaster struck. The film was set to end on a cliffhanger and go straight into the next film, which seems like a decent idea. The series was pretty strong, and even 9 did pretty good, despite coming out during the pandemic. The film was really big as well, costing over $300 million, with over 100 of that going to the cast itself. Justin Lin started filming, but a weekend left production over quote-unquote creative differences, which was a way to say Vin Diesel's ego made the film nearly unshootable.
That's so cool.
He He came in out of shape, kept forgetting his lines, and wanted to change shooting locations that the film started shooting in, without all the cast members signed on as well at that time, and certain roles unfilled. So after he left, F. Gary Gray, James Wan, and David Leitch, recent franchise directors, were all considered, but none of them could due to their other commitments. Louis Leterrier was chosen instead, with the director previously doing The Incredible Hulk for Universal, their only movie in the MCU, and since being on and off the short list to pop onto the production for this series for various films, but never making it happen until Fast X. The story follows the gang fighting a new villain, the supposed devil, Dante Reyes, the son of Herman Reyes from the fifth film, getting revenge for his father's killing and hoping to dismantle Toretto's gang once and for all while committing acts of terrorism along the way. The group is separated. Letty is stuck with Cypher on a nuclear sub. Dom has a team trying to stop Dante, and Jacob, Dom's brother, is traveling with his child, trying to dodge Dante, who wants to kidnap the kids and to be like the crown jewel of fucking with Dom.
I need this little shit alive.
The film ends with Dom reunited with his son, though Jacob is seemingly killed, and a plane containing the rest of the gang was also seemingly destroyed. Dom left to his own devices as Dante triumphs, and then nothing. The sequel that paid off these cliffhangers never came to be due to the mixed reviews as well as the underperformance at the box office for this giant film. Alright, Dominic Toretto wants to protect his family, being separated from his literal family, Letty and his son, who is somehow black despite Vin Diesel being racially ambiguous and the mom being super blonde. I don't know if this is his baby. Anyway, Dom arrives and shoots, and you get it. He wants to save the family. After a major disaster in Rome, led by Dante, that almost destroys the Vatican, but also destroys much of the city, Dom feels like a failure, and he just keeps failing throughout this movie. This isn't like past entries, where it always just works out for Dom, but Dom has a total surgical destruction, and presumably, like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, was set to come back and get revenge, but he doesn't because the second part never came to pass. Letty gets captured and is helped by Brie Larson to escape captivity, but also has to work with the series' previous big bad, the most evilest bad guy, Cypher, to make it happen. This woman murdered Dom's baby mama, and still they added her to the family.
Everyone becomes family. It's like a cult with cars.
At least they're getting a bit self-aware about the over-the-top nature of the characters just kind of joining the team even after being super villains. She doesn't do a ton in the film, but the conflict with Cypher is fairly interesting. Speaking on Cypher, she is brought in on an enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. You get it. Roman, Ramsey, and Tej are back doing their shtick. Roman at one point learns what it means to be a real leader. It's solid, I guess, but they end up in a death fake-out, their fate technically unknown since X2 never happened, but presumably they lived. Mia's here filling in for Brian, who I guess has the kids this weekend since he isn't here. Obviously Paul Walker is dead, but she is watching Dom's son, but knows he's safer with Jacob since she is going to be a target and Jacob is a super badass soldier man. You remember, he was the villain of the last one.
Everyone becomes family.
He joined the family. Han is still back on the team after he returned in Fast 9, and he's sad that Gal Gadot died. Oh, I guess she lived too. No one dies in this series. At least they justified Letty as having amnesia and Han as having to go underground or whatever in like the quadruple retcon that happened with his death scene. Why is Gazelle alive? Did she ever die? Everyone thought she was dead. All she did was fall on the tarmac. How'd they get away? Wouldn't they have found a like splattered body there? I guess we'll never know. Little Nobody, played by Scott Eastwood, is underused, which is kind of a shame because he is very clearly the heir to Paul Walker's character Brian's everyman cop role, but they never really got him working well, honestly, but I think that was kind of the role he was intended to play, and they just never made it work. Ames and Tess are new agents from the Nobody Agency. Tess instantly wants to help Toretto, but Ames doesn't. It isn't until he's saved by Toretto on the Brazilian bridge that he starts respecting Dom and starts backing him up. However, we learn in the last moments of the film that Ames is actually a traitor working for the cartel under Dante and possibly killing Dom's crew. Maybe we'll figure out what happened there. Deckard Shaw's here, and after learning Dante was going after his mom, takes off to save her. Anyhow, something probably happened with that, but we'll probably never know. Similarly, his Hobbs Shaw co-star shows up, threatened by Dante and going into battle. Who knows if The Rock will ever get there, though. Jason Momoa is Dante and is perhaps the greatest and worst Fast and Furious villain ever. He kind of tries playing Dante as Heath Ledger's Joker.
I'm the Joker, baby!
A fact that led us to call him Derek Jonkler, a reference to the Jonkler meme, as well as Derek Jokester from the Avengers of Justice film that I reviewed several years ago.
Such a stickler.
He basically has a revenge plot since his father died in Fast 5, something he also simultaneously admits that he didn't care about. So as vengeance for this event that he didn't really care about, he starts a giant terrorist scheme and tries killing Dom, acting like a goober along the way. Initially, I panned this character as the worst, most cringe-inducing thing I have ever seen in my entire life, but this time I finally got it, and I can confirm it is indeed cringe Kino in the same vein as Furious 7. We love Derek Jonkler now. For some reason, this is my cycle with Jason Momoa, though. I hated both of the Aquaman films originally, but have since grown on them, and somehow that happened here as well. It is a sublime mix of an awful Joker impersonation with some real, genuine over-effort that makes him just incredible here, and I honestly want more Dante.
Let's not argue in front of the children. You are absolutely right. My father was a horrible man. Very bad daddy.
Anyhow, it's too bad the sequel never happened. I really hope we get more of him because, goddamn, I love Derek Jonkler. This movie kind of wants to be serious, but also treats the world as the same over-the-top, unreal schlockfest it's been since at least Furious 7. There's nothing grounded here, but the ensemble doesn't miss, and Derek Jonkler is just so fun that I was having a fantastic time. The music for the film is pretty forgettable, but it's the same rap tracks we're used to. Lil Durk, NBA Youngboy, Kodak Black, G Herbo, 24K Golden, Suicide Boys, J Balvin make up the contemporary rap sound, but there's also an archival Biggie Smalls song with YG and Ty Dolla $ign and Bone Thugs to round it out for us old people. Perhaps the strongest song in the film, we affectionately called Jonkler's Triumph, was a song I immediately recognized from another famous Universal film, Dracula from 1931. The song is actually Swan Lake, which was a song from the late 19th century written for the opera Swan Lake. Why Jonkler's main theme took motifs from an 150-year-old Russian opera is unknown to me. Dracula added it because Universal had it in its song archive, so I'm kind of wondering, was this like a Dracula reference, or I don't know how, but was it done out of admiration for Swan Lake, the opera? Anyhow, Jonkler's Triumph is still great. Anyways, let me play some G Herbo next, I guess. The film is edited adequately enough by Dylan Highsmith and Kelly Masamudo, but of course the big elephant in the room is that the film is literally unfinished. It's half of a film that leaves most of our cast presumed dead or so far from Dom that it's hard to fathom what comes next. We saw Dom's great failure and ego death and destruction of his faith in his literally immortal family up to this point, who, let's be honest, probably survived it. I mean, if Han lived, anyone can live. Han's revival wasn't a twist. It was the biggest ass pull in movie history, but regardless of that, we are left with a million questions and answers notwithstanding. Fast X2 is not delayed either. The claim is that the new sequel, Fast Forever, is going back to street racing and is a grand pivot. Only time will tell how they manage to close the plot lines for this film they never created. Will they do a Peacock special that finishes the film? Will they hand wave it at the start? Is there a spin-off that's coming out? Was Dom dreaming the whole thing? There's literally no good option at this point on how to resolve this issue. Fast X, as intended, seems to be going out entirely unfinished. I mean, they could devote the first act of their supposed grounded street race film to stopping the Jonkler, but that doesn't seem like a very good idea when it comes to making Fast Forever a satisfying film on its own. So I guess the answer to our question is that they kind of fucked up, honestly. The film again was shot by Stephen F. Winden, and honestly, it's a good looking movie once again. It isn't some high art, but it gets the job done. Skeet Davidson shows up here in a 2004 Bape hoodie. Not a big fan of Skeeter.
Muffin party?
John Cena really eats up his scenes. He was kind of the other option for the new Brian, honestly. John Cena plays a perfect normal schlub to such an extent that you kind of forget he's a 300-pound muscle man, and his rapport with his screen nephew is kind of the bright spot of the cringe Kino we have here. Han at one point meets Shaw and is like, ta-da, the retcon that you killed me was re-retcon, so actually, we like you now. You no longer killed anyone of importance, and thus, you're invited into the Toretto family.
Relax. I don't want to fight you. And this is gonna end quick.
Oh, we learned the lore that the Toretto crew operates on a communist system. At one point, Tyree bails out the gang with his cash stash, to which Luda responds that he was holding out on the gang.
Wait, you holding out on us? No wonder you've been so calm. Bruh, what do you think this is, bruh?
This is when Dante empties out their massive shared bank account, which I think proves the family all operate out of one bank account or something. I wonder exactly how that works. Are they doled into an allowance, or do they just get a bunch of debit cards and they can all just pull from the stack? I don't really get it. They're mad at Tyree, but it makes sense. He needs extra cash, because how would he pay all the alimony out given the communism situation? It really wouldn't be fair to everyone else.
This is all I got. This is all I got. Don't take my baby, okay?
People like John Cena absolutely shine, and despite Vin Diesel's on-set antics, I mean, he's just so stupid, but an enjoyable character nonetheless. Fast 11 will probably never explain the cliffhangers and all the questions the film left us with. Dom will probably wake up from a dream and start racing for pink slips again against CGI Paul Walker. And you know what? That sounds like a good send-off, especially given the fact that the future of the franchise probably won't lie in spin-offs, but some sort of inevitable soft reboot or something where Vin Diesel trains the next generation of racers and like Glenn Powell's there or something. At the same time, this film also worked as a weird send-off in a way, and in a way is the maximum epic conclusion to the spy action series this quaint crime racing series about stealing TV VCR combos eventually morphed into. I'm sort of devastated that we never got a part 2, but at the same time, this may make me sound like an utter hack, but I think it kind of lends to the cringe Kino legend of this ultimate failure, and despite its flaws, I kind of love it. Do we need a Fast X2? Probably. Future generations will watch this series and be very confused why Fast X2 never happened. Hell, I am. It's going to be a really awkward moment in the box set for somebody 20 years down the line who wants to rewatch all these movies. Regardless, I love this film. Sue me for it. I don't know. How am I supposed to end this? Live fast, die furious.